Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be going over, did Jesus make a mistake in Matthew 13:31 through 32? Now, Matthew 13:31 through 32 says, He put another parable before them, saying, The kingdom of heaven is like a grain of mustard seed that a man took and sowed in his field. It is the smallest of all seeds, but when it has grown, it is larger than all the garden plants and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and make nests in its branches. Now, this one is pretty easy to debunk. Firstly, we need to understand the context behind mustard seeds, right? Now, within the mustard seeds in the Jewish world, mustard seeds were used commonly within figurative and parabolic language, right, to display something that's small or tiny, right? We see this in multiple different cases. For example, in the Mishnah, Nidah 5, verse 2, it says, even a drop of blood the size of a mustard seed renders her impure. Here, a mustard seed is being used as a idiom, right, to describe extreme smallness or something that's minuscule. We see this again in the Mishnah, Torah 8:8. It says, if the carcass is the size of a mustard seed, it still transmits impurity. Again, mustard seed being used with figurative language, symbolically, to show something that's very small. Again, in the Babylonian Talmud in Barakat 31a, it says, the daughters of Israel took upon themselves an additional stringency that even if they saw a drop of blood as small as a mustard seed, they would sit even 7 days. Again, mustard seeds being used as a known metaphor for something super tiny, right? Again, in Genesis Rabbah 93:3, which is a rabbinic commentary, it says, just as a mustard seed is small but strong, so too are the words of the Torah. Though small, they contain great wisdom. Right here, direct metaphor, pretty simple. And then again, finally, in the Leviticus Rabbi 31:9, it says, just as the last glimmer of daylight is like a mustard seed, so is the time of redemption at its start. Here again, mustard seed being used symbolically to show something very small, right? But that has a large implication. Now, what if they ask us to justify that this is figurative? Pretty simple. Firstly, we need to understand what a parable means. A parable is usually a figurative story with a heavenly meaning, right? It uses a lot of figurative language, metaphors, etc. Secondly, in the verse right before this, we see a simile. The kingdom of heaven is like a grain of mustard seed that a man took and stowed in his field. Right there, we see a simile, which is figurative language. And then on top of that, we can use hermeneutical principles to further justify this. For example, the hermeneutical principle analogy of faith helps us a lot. The analogy of faith basically is a hermeneutical principle when it comes to biblical hermeneutics, which takes that the scripture does not contradict itself, right? We can also use things like the principle of charity, scripture interprets scripture, etc., to understand that the Bible is not meant to contradict itself. And we also can look at hermeneutical principles like the historical context as well to further justify these things. And with all these together, we see that in the case of the Bible and how we understand the scriptures, this absolutely can't be a contradiction because there aren't any contradictions in scriptures. Obviously, this isn't an exhaustive statement. We don't take textual variants as contradictions, such as like the King Uzziah's age being 22 or 42 and those sorts of things. But in a general sense, that should be ample justification. It is ample justification. Thank you so much for watching. My TikTok is @BugLovesAll. I know it says I'm live on TikTok Monday through Friday, starting at 10 to 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. I've been a little off on that, very off, if you guys ever kept track. Sometime between starting at 10 a.m. and onward Central Standard Time, I'll be either on my live or on someone else's live debating. I'll give you guys that. Come join if you guys have questions or want to debate. I appreciate if you guys like and subscribe and comment any suggestions that you want or topics you want me to cover. Christ is King. I really appreciate all the support. Thank you.